Welcome to Attainable Green. I'm Jess, and today we're going to be potting up some terrestrial orchids. I'm going to share with you a little bit about the care that I'm going to give them and how they grow. So let's dive right in. So the first plants are the Habenaria radiata. This one is also known as the white egret orchid because the flowers resemble a bird in flight. This plant is originally found in Japan, and in cultivation, people have said that they can be easy to grow and they can also be difficult because it is challenging to maintain them after about 3 years or so. I'm not sure why that is, but I guess I'm going to find out. I picked two cultivars of this plant. One is Ginga, which is a variety that has variegated leaves, and another one called Hisyo, which is known for a twisted flower form of this plant. So I'm hoping to be able to grow these ones well so that we can see how this one grows. The tuber or the corm of this plant looks kind of like a kidney bean. And this one has already started to sprout, so you can see a little bit of a green tip. And I am potting them in a mix of kanuma and sphagnum moss. It's in a ratio of about 4 to 1, 4 parts kanuma and 1 part sphagnum moss. Kanuma is considered a volcanic earthy material. It's kind of similar to akadama or perlite. The only difference is that the color is different in that this tends to have a yellowish orange tone, and then the pH tends to be more on the acidic side. I got these plants from Kusamono gardens, and it was recommended that they use kanuma and moss for this particular plant, so I'm going to try it out and see how it goes. These plants can do well outside, so I'm hoping that they will like the conditions outdoors in my side yard, and we'll see how it goes. They like to stay evenly moist during the growing season, and after the plant grows, blooms, and the flowers die, the plant itself will die back and turn into another tuber. And then during the cooler season, we can store them away for the winter time, and the cycle begins again. So these plants are actually very similar to growing tulips, freesias, or any kind of bulb flower. So I'm going to treat them similar to that, but the potting method is slightly different. The next plant is the Ponerorchis graminifolia. Now, this plant is also known as the grassleaf orchid. It has these beautiful white flowers with kind of a purple pink throat or lip, and I just find them really delicate and very beautiful. I also got this one from Kusamono Gardens, and for this plant they recommend putting it in 100% kanuma. So I had potted these up, and it's already starting to grow quite quickly. These tubers are fatter and rounder than the Habenaria ones, and the shoot has started to sprout. After about a week, I already noticed that these tiny little shoots have already grown quite a bit, so I know that these plants will grow quite fast. I believe these plants are really popular in Japan, but we don't really see it in cultivation that much in the United States. Usually a handful of suppliers will have them over the winter to spring season, and then once they're sold out of those, then that's it until next year. The next plants are from the Nervilia genus. This is a relatively new genus, and most of the plants come from Southeast Asia and Australia. They're also known as the shield orchids. They have a very unique growing habit because they're considered kind of understory forest floor plants, in which they have like a small bulb or corm that shoots up a small flower stalk, and then after the flowers bloom, then it will grow a single solitary leaf. Not only that, the leaves of this plant have these really interesting veining or nerves, and that's what gives it its name, Nervilia. I picked up a few species to try out, and these are from Tarzane group. Since these are fairly new, I'm not quite sure how to pot them up, so I'm testing them out in groups of 2. So 2 are going to be potted up in 100% sphagnum moss. The other 2 are going to be potted up in 100% kanuma, and 2 more are going to be potted up in a mix of soil and small bark with a topping of moss. Basically, all of these plants need a high humidity environment, so I'm hoping I can duplicate that in this kind of setup and see how they do. There isn't too much information about the Nervilias, so I'm going to play it by ear and kind of figure out how to grow these and see how they do for this season. Now the last plant is the Corybas, ecarinatus, and this plant is very similar to the Nervilia, except that it grows a small heart-shaped leaf first, and then a flower will come from kind of the apex of the heart and bloom. So this plant is quite unusual. It also needs a very high humid environment, so I'm going to be growing this plant in 100% sphagnum moss. I'm hoping to see how all of these ones will do during the growing season. Right now they're just emerging from dormancy, or they're still a little bit dormant, so this is the perfect time to pot them up. This year, I'm focusing on growing terrestrial orchids. I find that a lot of them are deciduous. Funny enough, I feel like there's not a lot of information about these plants, either because they're not widely grown or there's just not a lot of information about them in general. I'm going to share my experience how to grow these plants and how I'm trying to grow these plants, because I find that there's not a lot of care advice out there. So if you grow these plants and you have some tips, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, Attainable Green, to follow along on my orchid growing journey. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!